Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. I hope everyone's fantastic. So as promised, I finally made the Henry Kissinger video. It's short, sweet, concise, to the point, and I hope you guys like it. All right, let's get into it. Henry Kissinger, recipient of the Nobel Peace Prize and the most famous American diplomat in U.S. history. Yet he is also one of the most infamous war criminals of our time, and in a perfect world would face a tribunal for his multiple crimes against the people of this planet, from Vietnam, Cambodia, and Laos to East Timor and Chile. Since he is yet to go to prison, he is still being protected at the highest levels. I've always had a fascination with these seemingly nobodies who somehow rise to the top of the political ladder. Kissinger didn't come from a powerful family, nor did he have an impressive pedigree that one would deem necessary in order to garner such an influential role. However, he was smart, immoral, and ruthless, all characteristics that led to his role on the world stage. Henry Kissinger was on the board of trustees of the Rockefeller Brothers Fund from 1956 to 58, advisor to John F. Kennedy, then National Security Advisor from 69 to 75, and Secretary of State from 73 to 77 to Richard Nixon, and advisor to George W. Bush's Global War on Terror. According to Wikipedia, Kissinger was born Heinz Alfred Kissinger on May 27, 1923, in Fürth, Bavaria, Germany, the son of homemaker Paula and Louis Kissinger, and older brother to businessman Walter Kissinger. His family was German-Jewish. The surname Kissinger was adopted in 1817 by his great-great-grandfather Meyer Loeb after the Bavarian spa town of Bad Kissingen. In 1938, when Kissinger was 15 years old, he and his family fled Germany as a result of Nazi persecution. The family briefly immigrated to London before arriving in New York City. After a stint in the United States Army, beginning with the job of driving General Fritz Kramer around war-torn Germany thanks to the Oppenheimer family, Kissinger was picked to attend Wilton Park for further training. Wilton Park is an executive agency of the UK Foreign Commonwealth and Development Office, providing a global forum for strategic discussion. Based since 1951 at Winston House in Sussex, it organizes over 70 dialogues a year in the UK and overseas, bringing together leading representatives from the world of politics, business, academia, diplomacy, civil society, and media. In 1952, he was sent to Tavistock Institute, where R.V. Dix took him in hand and turned him inside out. Thereafter, there was no holding Kissinger back. He was later drafted to serve under George Franklin and Hamilton Fish of the Council on Foreign Relations New York office. It is believed that the official nuclear policy adopted by the United States was delivered by Kissinger during his stay at Tavistock and further shaped by his participation in nuclear weapons and foreign policy, a roundtable seminar which brought forth the doctrine known as flexible response, a total irrationality which became known by the acronym MAD. Thanks to William Yandell and under the tutelage of John Wheeler Bennett, top intelligence director of the Roundtable and chief of MI6 field operations in the United States, Kissinger became Eliot's favorite son, as he explained in his book, The Pragmatic Revolt in Politics. Kissinger was co-opted into the Roundtable to push monetarist policies he studied at Harvard International Seminars. Kissinger avidly absorbed Eliot's teachings and was apparently no longer recognizable. Kissinger was inculcated with the spirit of the master of Balliol, becoming an ardent disciple of decadent British aristocracy. Balliol College was and still is the center of recruiting for the British Roundtable. Adopting the philosophies of Toynbee, a chief intelligence director for MI6 at the RIIA or Chatham House, and director of future studies at Tavistock, Kissinger used its papers to write his undergraduate dissertation titled The Meaning of History, Reflections on Spengler, Toynbee, and Kant. And as you may know from my videos on Tavistock, German author Oswald Spengler's work, The Decline of Western Civilization, that Kissinger so deeply admired, was adopted as the blueprint for Tavistock in 1937. Kissinger was also mentored by none other than Sir John Rawlings Rees, head of the British Army Bureau of Psychological Warfare for the Tavistock Institute. In 1955, Kissinger was investigated by U.S. military intelligence due to his publication Confluence, which promoted a pro-communist point of view, and it was funded by the Ford Foundation, Richardson Foundation, and Far Eastern Foundation. By the mid-1960s, Kissinger had proved his work to the Roundtable and the RIIA, and thus to the British monarchy. And as a reward and a test of what he had learned, Kissinger was placed in charge of a small group consisting of James Schlesinger, Alexander Haig, and Daniel Ellsberg, who were being used to conduct a series of experiments. Cooperating with this group was Tavistock's IPS, or Institute for Policy Studies, chief theoretician Noam Chomsky. Haig, like Kissinger, worked for General Kramer, and the general found a number of varied openings in the Department of Defense for his protege. Once Kissinger was installed as a national security advisor, Kramer got Haig the job as his deputy. Ellsberg, Haig, and Kissinger then set in motion the RIIA's Watergate plan to oust President Nixon for disobeying direct instructions. Haig played the lead role in brainwashing and confusing President Nixon, and in effect, it was Kissinger who ran the White House during the softening up of the president. Haig was a White House go-between known as Deep Throat, passing information to Washington Post team Woodward and Bernstein. Kissinger was directed to fill all executive positions in the Nixon admin with roundtablers loyal to the RIIA and therefore to the Queen of England. The significance of the roundtable Kissinger operation was thus: on orders of the RIA chairman, Andrew Schoenberg, a block was placed on all agencies involved in intelligence, preventing them from giving information to President Nixon. This meant Kissinger and his staff were getting all intelligence, foreign and domestic, law enforcement information, including FBI Division 5, before any of it was released to the president. This made certain that all MI6 terrorist operations in the U.S. would have no chance of being leaked. By working this methodology, Kissinger established hegemony over the Nixon presidency. And after Nixon was disgraced by Kissinger and associates and hounded from office, Kissinger emerged with the unprecedented powers. The Watergating of Nixon was the biggest coup yet pulled off by the Round Table as an agency and arm of the Royal Institute of International Affairs, or Chatham House. All tangled webs led back to the Round Table, from there to the RIA, and back to the Queen of England. The humiliation of Nixon was a warning to future presidents that they could not go against the wishes of the shadow government and win. Kennedy was brutally murdered in full view of the American people for this exact same reason. By 1974, after the Club of Rome made population reduction part of the global agenda, the United States National Security Council, under the direction of Henry Kissinger, developed its own version of the Club of Rome's documents, National Security Study Memorandum 200, or NSSM 200. This memorandum explicitly discusses a strategy by which the United States would aggressively promote population control in developing nations to have access to natural resources thought necessary to protect the U.S. and Western corporate strategic interest. Kissinger claimed that the burgeoning populations in LDCs, or less developed countries, especially those that had natural resources, coveted for U.S. strategic interests, were a national security threat. Now, this should go without saying, but when these documents refer to U.S. strategic interests, they are not referring to the people of the United States, but to those Americans who dominate, control, and own the American economy. As usual, because of the goals, American people were propagandized about the extensive foreign aid sent to the poor countries. The public was led to believe that their leaders were sending massive humanitarian aid overseas. This, of course, is bullshit. Most taxpayer-funded foreign aid is spent on the military, the clandestine agencies, and on projects managed by Western companies. Little aid is funneled to the local economies of developing countries. Foreign aid is often just another wealth transfer, boondoggle, and crony payoff, as shown in 2005 when it was revealed that the United States Agency of International Development, or USAID, which distributes foreign aid, was spending 95% of its malaria budget on consultants and 5% on goods such as nets, drugs, and insecticide. Henry Kissinger is nothing more than a hitman used to destabilize sovereign nations at the behest of his bosses at the RIAA and the British Round Table. Kissinger is the main accomplice in the murder of Italy's Aldo Moro, a loyal member of the Christian Democrat Party. Aldo Moro had been a leading politician for decades. Moro's plan to stabilize Italy through full employment and industrial and political peace would have strengthened Catholic opposition to communism. Moro was kidnapped in broad daylight in the spring of 1978. All of his bodyguards butchered in cold blood. This heinous act was carried out by assassins controlled by P2 Masonry, with the object of bringing Italy in line with the Club of Rome's orders to deindustrialize the country and considerably reduce its population. Kissinger's role in destabilizing the United States by means of 3 wars, the Middle East, Korea, and Vietnam, is well known, as is his role in the Gulf War, in which the U.S. Army acted as mercenaries for these demons in bringing Kuwait back under its control, and at the same time making an example out of Iraq so that other small nations wouldn't be tempted to work out their own destiny. Kissinger also threatened the late Ali Bhutto, president of the sovereign nation of Pakistan. Bhutto's crime was that he favored nuclear weapons for his country because, as a Muslim state, Pakistan felt threatened by continued Israeli aggression in the Middle East. Bhutto was officially murdered by the Council on Foreign Relations representative, General Saul Haque, in 1979. Kissinger threatening Abuto was not official U.S. policy, but the policy of the modern-day Illuminati. Kissinger keeps in close touch with Moscow on behalf of the RIA. Global modeling papers were regularly shared with Kissinger and friends in the Kremlin. Avril Hammerman, who you may remember who also helped fund the Nazis in Germany, was also a direct link with the Kremlin, a position which Kissinger inherited after Harriman's death. If you want to know who Putin's daddy is, look no further than Henry Kissinger. Under the title Caribbean Basin Initiative, Henry Kissinger and David Rockefeller set up the mechanisms for handling the ganja trade in Jamaica, which makes up its total gross national profit. Kissinger was also a board member of Theranos, which I find fascinating. I still can't wrap my head around that entire operation. Maybe one day the truth will come out. I could literally go on and on and on about the treasonous acts Kissinger is responsible for, all for one goal, and that is to destroy sovereign nations and the United States of America. The media will never evaluate how people like Kissinger and Brzezinski have sought to destroy intentionally what they call the fiction of sovereignty and have been active and upfront in undermining U.S. national sovereignty in pursuit of a one-world order. Kissinger, an avowed agent of British oligarch and Soviet interests, seeks to destroy America's superpower status in a new multipolar world order with Russia and China as the center of power. All right, guys. I hope you liked the video. Comment below. Tell me more. Let's get the dialogue going about Heinz Kissinger.